What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Another Quincy Carrier going off the air. Another great episode from him. Welcome into another episode of the Mock Draft Duel. I'm Jacob. That's Sam. Sam, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well because I'm unmuted.
So when I started talking, I saw that you were muted, and I was like, "Let's see what happens. Let's see. Let's see if he
Well, bait
unmutes
and
this
switch.
time." you know it was another uneventful Monday, as we in terms of Browns free agency, because they just continue to want to string me along, and they understand that I'm on vacation this week but at my house and just want anything. Just give me something. Give me a quarterback. I don't even care who it is at this point. Carson Wentz, don't care. Just sign him up. Sign it up. Let's sign it up so we can do this. We can do that.
Jake
I don't know.
Delhomme coming right up.
You want to, the funniest thing ever, Jake Delhomme, that year, I was in basic training when they signed Jake Delhomme. That is I found out in basic training on a letter, just so you get letters from your parents, and that was in a letter from my dad, was that the Browns had signed Jake Delhomme.
Jacob, we got a Super Bowl quarterback.
I think he probably made that joke. Like, that definitely was the thing that happened. Guys, we got a really special episode for you guys tonight. We have a guest. He's a college football analyst and a draft analyst over at A to Z Sports. Follow him on Rise and Draft on Twitter. I followed him for several years. Very, very knowledgeable. So I'm going to bring him on right now, Mr. Ryan Roberts. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, guys. I'm doing good. Jacob, I feel kind of bad, though, man. I heard you just said that you're on vacation and you're still podcasting. So I don't know if that's a great decision, but, it is what it is, right?
It's where I feel at peace. Right? Like
It's not vacation from, it's vacation for.
Yeah.
It's a solid point. That's a really solid point. But I really do appreciate you guys for having me. I know you were just saying, but like, I feel like we have been following each other, everyone in this room, for a very long time. So thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate that.
We're very excited. Sam and I do this, we have these spirited debates. Not really. We're very similar when we evaluate draft prospects, but we go back and forth each week, multiple mock drafts. And so I'm really excited to bring somebody else in, especially from outside Browns fandom. Like, because we've had guests that come in that are Browns fans, that are Browns analysts and all that good stuff. So before we are going to do a mock tonight with Ryan's help, but I did have a couple questions, and I'm sure Sam had a couple questions just in general draft prospects.
Sure.
It's the hot button topic. I know you've probably been asked this a million times, but it is what it is around Cleveland. So where do you stand on Shedeur Sanders?
Start me off with the tough one.
Welcome to the show.
I think that Shedeur Sanders is a very okay quarterback. What should we be talking about him in the top two conversation? Absolutely not. I have a late second, early third on Shedeur. Like, I think there's a lot about him that I like, and those things are, I thought his presence in the pocket was improved this past year. I do think he's the most accurate overall quarterback in this class on multiple levels of the field. And I do think that he has a swagger about him that is I think it's captivating for a quarterback if it used correctly. But the tools just aren't very exciting at all, are they? I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're talking about a young man that is 6'1.5", 212 pounds, slighter frame. He's not a great athlete, doesn't really evade pressure all that well, which is a reason for the high sack total outside of just holding the ball for dysfunctionally too long all the time. And his arm strength is average at best. I mean, like, maybe slightly below. It's in that ballpark. My comp for him last year was Teddy Bridgewater, and I feel still great about that comp. I think that he could be a low-end starter potentially in the NFL level. And if we're talking about him somewhere mid-day two, I'd be like, cool, man, that's great. But unfortunately, we're in a quarterback class where we're pushing him up the board because outside of Cam Ward, who is the complete opposite of him, a toolsy kid, there just isn't a quarterback that anybody really loves in this class. And it's Shedeur this year because he's had production. He obviously has NFL bloodlines, all those types of things, right? But if the overall question is, should we be drafting Shedeur Sanders at number 2 overall or even in the top 10 of the NFL draft in any given year? The answer is no. We should not be doing that, in my opinion.
Here's the somewhere between mid and meh. As world's fastest fat man. Sam, you got something?
Yeah, I mean it's very different topic, but I'm always interested in the in getting in the weeds. Who are some day 3 offensive linemen, specifically, hopefully, offensive tackles, who you think have starter potential?
Why, do you guys have too many guards on the team now for whatever reason?
That it did, yeah. Yep. Plenty of them. Plenty of guards.
Plenty of guards. Tevin Jackson played left tackle, maybe. I have no idea what's happening with that one, but yeah, who knows?
We don't even know his contract. He signed days ago. We have no idea what Tevin Jenkins.
We don't even know if he exists. If he's a real person.
I'm pretty good friends with Corey Kinnan, who I'm sure you guys know. He's in the Brown space, and we literally have a running joke of just talking about the weirdest signings of the offseason. And Tevin Jenkins is definitely in that conversation. Like, it just that you guys have 2 of the best guards in the NFL, right? And then you're like signing him at Oklahoma State. He played mostly right tackle. I know he played some left tackle at Oklahoma State, but he was mostly a right tackle. So like, oh, maybe they're trying him out at right tackle. It's like, but they still have Jack Conklin. So like, why are they doing this exactly? And it's like the only answer that is out there that he's playing left tackle, right? Like that's the only answer. But then also, like you said,
they're just
I know
hoping one of the guards just morphs into a quarterback at some point.
Quarterback, a left tackle. Like, yeah, someone's got to play something at some point. It's
it'll be all right.
At least Myles Garrett's back, I guess, though. But sorry, I'm going way off topic here.
No, we're good.
Day 3 offensive tackles. Yeah, day 3 offensive tackles. I mean, I think it really depends on how the board falls. I mean, I think there's a chance that Chase Luntz from UConn falls to day 3, but it's like very borderline. I could see him being a borderline top 100 player. He is about as good in this class if we're just talking about like lateral mobility. I think he's got really smooth hips. He's a wide zone-esque type of offensive tackle. You're not going to ask him to play, a ton in gap power and be able to move dudes at the point of attack. Like that's not really his game because he's just kind of a lighter built dude. But like if we're asking to manipulate on the move, get a guy out into space, maybe pull him occasionally, screen game, like that type of stuff, I like Chase Lunt a lot. Like I think he's a really good athlete. I could see him being a starting offensive tackle. Charles Grant, it might be a top 100 player too out of William and Mary, but like another borderline kid because he's dealt with injuries that cost him the tail end of his last season, and obviously it affected his ability to test, at the NFL scouting combine as well. But he's another kid, like a couple years ago, he was like 6'4" and probably about 280 pounds. And he was like one of those kids that people were like, hey man, you might want to transfer up because if you hit a good nutrition program and you put some positive weight on, you might be an NFLer. Well, luckily he's stuck there and now he's 310 plus pounds, but he's a really good athlete, like on the move. I know some people reject him inside a guard, which I get sort of, but like also he's a really good athlete with 35-inch or almost 35-inch arms. I'm like, I don't need to move that kid inside. Like I don't see any need. He could play on an island and I think he'll be fine there. So those are a couple guys I think just off the top of my head that are very interesting players from a developmental perspective, because there's a lot of tackles in this class that we were having the debate of like, are they a guard or are they a tackle? Those are 2 kids that like, I don't think we need to have that debate, right? Like we can have the debate of like what their runway is to be developing into a starter on the NFL level. Like that's a fine conversation, but like there's no need for like a Chase Luntz to move inside potentially kind of long term. So a couple of those guys there. I'm trying to think of like someone maybe a little bit later, like day 3-ish. Nobody's really coming to mind that like I love. It's just not a great tackle class. Like it's really not, like that's, if you want just a guy that's a swing player, like I saw Jalen Travis a couple years ago actually because he was at Princeton and he was a lot smaller then, like he hadn't packed on the weight that he did at Iowa State. I think he's a pretty good mover. I think he added a lot of weight at Iowa State, so like it's made him slightly more clunky than what he was at Princeton. Like when I watched him at Princeton, guys, he was like 6'7", 6'8", 6'7" 3/4", whatever you want to put it, and was like maybe 310 pounds at that point. I mean, he's like 330, 340 now. Like he's a massive dude. So if you want a kid that could play left tackle on a pinch, could play right tackle and develop and be a swing player at both spots, I think Jalen Travis is more probably mid to late day 3 capital. That could be an interesting pick.
Yeah, so I can't hear his name without immediately thinking like Jordan Travis, like thinking of the quarterback from Florida. I don't know what it is. There's just sometimes like what's the Kansas quarterback's name?
Jalen Daniels.
Jalen Daniels,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
It's the
him and
name off
Jaden
season.
Daniels. I can't. They'll be like, "Hey, it's Jalen Daniels," and I'm like, "What?"
He's
It's Saturday.
Jaden Daniels. He's Jane Daniels' cousin that didn't get much of the talents, right? Like he's like I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Twins, but it's like he's Danny DeVito in this conversation. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, I got one more for you. Sam probably has one more for you. Then we'll launch into the mock draft because that's what we like to do around here, and that I think that's we'll let you drive the bus, but we'll be annoying little things in your ears at the time. I'm the annoying one. Sam just sits there and just chimes in very insightfully.
Sam's
all
very
of it.
chill. I dig it. He's very
That's
chill.
it is a very weird way to spell and pronounce annoying, but I mean, to each their own, I guess.
He's just
I'm
going to
not the
trade away
grammar
all of our
police.
6th-round picks. That's just all he
Yeah,
does.
that's my job.
He trades the 6th-round picks every week. We get to the end of these things. We pick back and forth, right? Like I pick, he picks, I pick. It's standard format, right? We get to the end, and I got to make like 5 picks in a row because he's traded
Just
them.
the last half hour, I don't say a single word. Jacob's just talking constantly.
He's just
That reminds me of in a former life I was a teacher, and I was a teacher during COVID when you had to teach virtually, and we couldn't tell any of the kids to turn their cameras on. So I felt like I was talking to myself for like an hour and 30 minutes at a time. So I know the feeling that sounding like you're just talking to yourself for like a long time. So
why this wide receiver class is weird, right? Like I can't be the only one that thinks that because it's like I saw Chris Sims today. His rankings were those were interesting, and then he called it a deep class, and I thought that was very interesting that he said that thing as well. No clue what's going on there, but tier 2. When we're getting into day 2, is there a wide receiver that stands out? Like for me, I think he's falling a little bit. I love Luther Burden. Like I love Luther Burden because I just love what he does after he catches the football. I understand the slot issues, the press man coverage. He was never really asked to do that. He's kind of a sloppy route runner. I think he gets a little lazy sometimes on his intermediate routes, but like he's dynamic. Is there some guy that stands out to you on day 2 at the wide receiver position where you're like, hey, that guy makes an offense more dynamic immediately?
there's a couple. I think they both share the same first name, but a different spelling of it. I could say Jalen Royals from Utah State, but I'm going to go with Jalen Noel, excuse me, out of Iowa State. That's one. I know every year that we overuse the term "my guys," right? But like that's one this year for me. I mean, the kid is 5'10", 196 pounds, but ran 4.38 at the 4.39 at the combine. Had a 40+ inch vert, had an 11-foot broad. This kid has a track background, but you wouldn't necessarily know it by watching his film all the time because he's very nuanced in his approach, right? Like he understands pacing as a route runner. He's not a guy that's just full on, I'm going to run as fast as I can and get on your toes. Like he understands the variety of releases, how to attack blind spots, like all those nuanced things. And he's going to play a lot in the slot, obviously, but I do think with that vertical speed he has, he can play some Z as well. Like I do think that he's a little bit of a versatile player that can move around a bit. But guys, like I don't like doing like these super like over the top comps because like the way I use comps is I compare guys play style and body types. Like that's my comparison process. But every time you make a comp to someone says like, "Oh my God, Ryan said that this guy is going to be Peyton Manning," and it's just like, no, I'm not telling you he's going to be Peyton Manning. I'm just telling you that like he reminds me physically and play style of player X. But he reminds me a lot of Steve Smith Sr. Like a lot of Steve Smith Sr. because he's explosive, he's fast, he's dynamite after the catch. He does a lot of great things with the football in his hand. But the thing that separated Steve Smith from every other 5'9", 190-pound wide receiver is that he was unbelievably competitive in the air. Like unbelievably. Like you just wouldn't believe it by watching him, you know? And that stuff takes you off guard a little bit. I always we characterize players into roles, right? Like if I said a dynamite slot receiver, first impulse in your mind goes, well, a guy probably really knows how to work space well. Probably is really good after the catch. He probably is a killer against zone, like all those types of things, right? Like that's where your mind goes. But Steve Smith was a little bit of an outlier in the sense of he did uncommon things for the role that he was going to play on the NFL level. And that's what I see with Jalen Noel. Like I just did a video where I wouldn't be shocked if a team in the back end of the first round in a really strange year was like, I want Jalen Noel. I keep saying Noel, I'm Noel back to, apparently it's Noel, but I keep saying Noel, but Jalen Noel is a guy that I would not be shocked if he goes in the back end of the first round, because the way I look at it, in a year where there's guys with off the field concerns, there's always medical stuff that knocks some dudes down pegs. This is a kid that had great last 2 years at Iowa State, especially last year, over 1,000 yards, 80 catches, while sharing the football with another potential top 100 wide receiver in Jaden Higgins. Then he goes to Senior Bowl, and I would argue he's the best receiver on either team. That's what I thought for the week. Then he goes to the Combine. He tests out at the gym, and then he also does not have any injury concerns to my knowledge. He doesn't have off-field concerns. Like, he was a captain of the Iowa State team. So, like, it's a stacking of the resume process, right? Like, this time of year, it's like, how many boxes can you check? How many things can you stack? When I look at that and I'm like, if there was a guy that you were kind of like raising your eyebrows, like, wow, I didn't think that guy was going to be a first round pick, but like, I don't really hate it. Like, I don't hate him being a first round pick. That would be Jalen Noel for me this year, because I just think that kid he just checks a lot of things, and he does uncommon things for the role that he's going to play on the NFL level. Even if we want to just kind of label him as a slot receiver, I think it's a very lazy label. Like, we're just going to throw it on him. We're going to have an assumption. And I'm just like, that's not just a slot receiver. That's a dynamite kid who could play slot, NZ, and you could do a lot of different things with him for an NFL offense.
I was finishing coming out on the website tomorrow, Tuesday morning. I have a draft profile on Luther Burden, and that was something on the weaknesses is like slot only. Like he was like, at least for most of his production the last 2 years, it was mainly in the slot. But I then went on to be like, but who cares? Like I don't care anymore if a guy's a slot only wide receiver when we're playing a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. When it's like, oh, this guy is super explosive off the line of scrimmage and he creates after the catch. I don't care where he does it from. I just don't know. Like, it was a death sentence before, right? But like now it's like, who cares? And I do think Noel can play on the outside, but still, my point remains. I think like trying to just like be like, man, this is a day 3 guy because he can only play in the slot. I think that's silly.
It reminds me of a couple years ago. I forget if it was his first or second year, but when CeeDee Lamb was playing the majority of just the slot for the Cowboys and had like 100 catches, everyone's like, but guys, he's just a slot receiver. And I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, he's just a slot receiver. Cooper Kupp was just a slot receiver too, and was a Triple Crown winner a couple years ago. Like, who cares? Like, good football players are good football players. We over-obsess over the labels and the roles, and in reality, it's on the coaches to get the most out of the talents, right? Like, I feel like we skate over that fact way too much. I don't care what a guy's usage percentage is as far as alignment, all that type of stuff. I'm in the business of drafting good football players. That's kind of what I usually like to do.
Fair enough. All right, my last question for now is, do you see anyone in this class beyond, the top 1 or 2 guys who you could see yourself being comfortable with being the center fielder free safety of your defense at some point?
Oh, that's a good one. Man, there's not a ton of free safeties in this class, like true dudes. There's not. I was a fan of Dante Trader from Maryland in the preseason, but like he just wasn't very good this year. It was kind of weird. Like I didn't really get it. I'm trying to think, like Jonas Sanker's not a free safety type. He's a pretty good football player though. I mean, Starks is really the only one that I'm just like, yeah, that's free safety, dude, right there. Xavier Watts, even though he's got good range and ball skills, I wouldn't really call him a center fielder either. He's more of a too high guy. Not a ton, man. There's really not. I mean, I'm really just trying to catch a guy where I'm just like, yeah, that is a no doubt free safety type. I would say if you just want a guy that is a little bit versatile in your alignments, and maybe you're not just lining up in cover 1, cover 3 pre-snap and just telling him to play, I think Xavier Watts can do some of those things, right? I mean, the kid just had 13 interceptions his last 2 years, and I think the cool thing about Xavier Watts is obviously like I have Notre Dame fandom, so I got to cover him a lot. he was a wide receiver for a majority of the early portion of his Notre Dame career, and his pathway has been super weird at Notre Dame. He was a wide receiver first. They moved him to Rover, which is like Notre Dame runs a 4-2-5, so he's playing like a Sam linebacker basically out in space. It didn't make any sense, but like whatever.
Old
They moved him to,
JOK rule, right?
yes, exactly. Yep, the jock roll, 100%. So they moved him out to that overhang position. They then moved him back to receiver. Then they moved him to safety, back to receiver, and then to safety finally. And they were just like, okay, you're just staying there. And luckily they did, because we saw growth in 2022, the last like 3 to 4 games. He started to play a lot, even though he didn't have any gaudy stat numbers like you saw it, right? But then 2023, I mean, obviously, like, he had like 7 interceptions and he was an All-American, and then he did it back to back. He's one of the smartest players in the draft. I don't think, because like when I hear center fielder type, I think of range, right? Like a guy that can really flip his hips and can cover middle of the field to hash the sideline and be able to have that type of range. I wouldn't say Xavier Watts has that type of range, but what I would say about Xavier Watts is that he's so smart. He typically gets to the right spot before most people do, ultimately. So that's probably a center fielder type. I don't want to quit Dante Trader. So, like, if you want to take Dante Trader, who's a lacrosse player too at Maryland, super interesting background. But if you want to gamble on him somewhere mid to late day 3 as a center fielder type, I think he does have some of those traits, but unfortunately, he just wasn't able to really put it together his final year.
I think that's a really good point, because definitely this class doesn't necessarily have the talent as far as the safety position goes. And I think it's also a matter of, that's kind of just the scheme shift, especially the NFL playing a lot more too high. And that's just how the game is trending these days, so that you're not going to see, as many of those true cover one center fielder guys as you may have used to. And maybe, things will change here in a couple of years, but for now you're going to see more of those guys like Watts, where you have that skill set.
Yeah, well, and I think most teams want to, like, they don't want to tip their hand anymore, right? Like, I feel like we see more post-snap movements than we ever did before, right? Like, every team looks like they're running too high until they're not anymore, you know what I mean? And those types of things, because, I mean, it used to be, because I coached, like, high school football here, right? So, like, your thought process will, like, get everyone aligned the right way. We can't post-snap rotate. Like, that is not a thing we're going to do. We're pre-snap and rotate because I need to make sure guys are just in the right spots. But, like, in the NFL, these dudes are so smart and just so they just have a much greater understanding, obviously, of being able to be a sponge, right? And to be able to understand those little nuances of the game and being able to do all that really fun stuff post snap. So I think it's a cyclical game at the end of the day, right? Like more teams were playing too high. Now the run game came back last year. So what are we going to do? We're going to get that safety back in the box and overload it and make those guys have to readjust. So it's always going to come back at some point. It's fun. That's why honestly, that's why I love covering the sport. Like it's an evolving game. Like it never stays the same. Like we think I always talk about like the modern space game, yes, that lasted probably for a couple of years, but now the run game's coming back, and eventually it's going to be, now what's the next evolution? It's like the defense spent years getting smaller and more athletic in the box, right? Well, now they're going to get bigger and stronger on the offensive side of the football, and they're going to run right down their throats. And then what's the defense going to have to do? They're going to have to become big and physical again and be able to do those types of things. So it's a cyclical, evolving game. The nuances of like what a team might be trying to do schematically on both sides of the ball is always going to be ever evolving and kind of difference, for the lack of a better word. But like overall, the philosophy is always going to stay the same. You run where you have a numbers advantage and you take advantage of the size advantage you have. It's still a big man's game at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just like, I got so used to being like, in the modern NFL, we throw it a lot. And you write articles, and I wrote so many articles with that, with talking about that when talking about the draft. And like, this is where the Browns need to focus on. Because for the longest time, and it's still kind of this way, they've got Jerry Jeudy. Like for the longest time, they couldn't get somebody that could run code routes. They finally signed Marquise Goodwin. You're like, this is awesome. And then blood clots. And you're like, sure, why not? And then like they threw him like 4 passes all year when he got healthy, and you're like, I just don't know what's going on. And
So this will maybe give you guys a different perspective on if you want to complain about the Browns off season. Like they're playing chess, man. Like you guys are trying to play checkers, and they're like, you know what we're gonna do? Nothing but guards, no quarterback. We're just gonna run the football 98% of the time, and that's gonna be the new Cleveland Browns.
They got Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson on the roster, if you're just curious. There's not even some other guy on the roster, like at quarterback. Like, that's the thing. Because there's always a guy, right? Like a futures contract or something like that. It's like, oh, you got that Sam Houston State quarterback from 3 years ago. No. You have Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson, who is now suddenly, suspiciously, posting a lot of social media posts where you can very clearly see he's wearing a boot on that foot. All of a sudden. Whatever. All right. Moving on, we've got the beautiful PFF mock draft simulator just because I think it looks the prettiest, I guess, is why we're gonna do it this way.
You even have dark mode.
I'm in dark mode. It's weird. The rest of everything is in dark mode. I don't know why this part is not in dark mode. I can't figure out.
You gotta get the dark reader extension.
Yeah, it's technology.
Jacob. Ryan's here. You gotta put. You gotta be on your best behavior.
I know. You're always up there. Like he'll bring up his NFL mock draft database and it's in dark mode. And I'm like, oh my god, how do you do that? Because the rest of my computer's in dark mode because I'm blind. All right, so we'll tee it up for you here. Here at number 2 overall, is there a question? Like, are you hesitant or anything, or are you pretty confident like what you think should be done here at this spot?
So you're asking me what I would do, not what predictively I think is going to happen, right? Because those are two very, very different things right now. Very different things.
Yeah, and the Browns have sent me so many mixed signals that I'm going to just start doing what I want to do.
Okay, that's fair. Well, if it was today, I would predict it would be Shedeur. But if I was making the pick, I would take Abdul Carter personally. Like that's what I would do. I don't think there's a wrong answer necessarily between him and Hunter, depending on how you look at Hunter. But I want to see a world where Myles Garrett has Abdul Carter on the other side of him. That's what I want to see, right? Like that's exciting to me. If you don't have a good quarterback, at least you can affect the other quarterback on the opposite team and make his life a living you-know-what, right? Like that would be fun. So Abdul Carter is my top-ranked player in this class overall, slightly above Travis Hunter. I think those are a couple of the blue chippers, obviously, in this group. So if it was me, I would take Abdul Carter.
Yeah, I was listening to the Athletic Football Show today while I was at the gym, and they were just like, and I heard Greeny say it on First Draft too. They're just like quarterback, and then people that disrupt the quarterback. That's what you should be trying to build. Like that's 1 and 2. And so it's like, and I just keep coming back to this. Like, man, if Abdul Carter was out there and Myles Garrett, and it was like, and then you get those downs where Myles comes off and maybe Abdul Carter doesn't come off, and like you can do some of these rotate.
And here's my thing with Travis, right? If we're taking Travis, again, I think Travis is great. I think he's a dynamite athlete. Well, a unicorn in every sense of the word. Like we just haven't seen too many Travis Hunters. I've never seen a Travis Hunter. Like this is the first time I've ever seen a dude that could go top 10 at 2 different spots. But so if the Browns draft him 2nd overall, at some point there's a decision that has to be made. Even if you're letting him play both sides of the ball in some capacity, he's not going to play full scale on both sides of the ball. So is he a corner or is he a wide receiver if you're drafting him at number 2? Because here's my thing, right? I prefer him at corner. I think that he is rarer at the corner position comparative to wide receiver. Not that I don't think he's a good receiver, right? But are you drafting him as a wide receiver that's going to play some corner, which I think is a very misguided perception? Or are you drafting him as a corner to play a little bit of wide receiver? I ask that because the Browns on paper do have some good corners, right? Sort of. Like, I mean, like
Yeah.
Denzel Ward's still under contract. I know Greg Newsome's been like up and down, but like when he's good, he's pretty good, right? Like I don't know.
He's fine.
I'm just struggling with like the Travis Hunter fit as far as like how they would even play him. Maybe you guys are more educated on that part than I am, obviously.
Our editor Pete Smith, he has this idea of him being a wide receiver that moonlights as kind of a safety, which I think is kind of an intriguing thing. Because I think if you're going to moonlight, you want to moonlight as a wide receiver, because I think corner is a more complicated position to play. And if I'm going to ask you to do that, then I'm going to want your focus on there. I like him better as a wide receiver. And I wonder, does he consider wide receiver because there's more money there?
That's I mean, if gun is to his head and you're like, hey man, like you can only play one, he has to pick receiver, right? I mean, with what the market is nowadays. I mean, he's talking about like the long-term investment conversation, and I mean, yeah, I think that wide receiver would definitely be the spot he wants to play. I always come back to a conversation I had with JC Horn a few years ago when he came on the podcast, and I got to know JC at a very good level, and he's a great dude. He told me that his father, obviously Joe Horn, who was a great wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. So JC was a wide receiver and corner coming out of high school, and South Carolina actually recruited him as an athlete, and they were kind of let him pick whatever spot he wanted to, was kind of the thing. And Joe, and the reason that JC played corner, he actually wanted to play wide receiver at South Carolina. The reason he played corner was because Joe Horn, his father, told him, JC, there's a lot of guys that look like you at wide receiver in the world, in college football and in the NFL. There's just not a lot of them that look like you a corner, man. And that's how I kind of feel about Travis, is like, do I think Travis could be a very good wide receiver in the NFL level? I do. But do I think he could be a rare corner? I also do. Like, I do, right? So like that's kind of the interesting, because we've seen such an oversaturation of wide receiver the last few years, because we've had like 4 of the last 5 years has been like historical wide receiver classes, like crazy amount of talent. At some point, we talked about the cyclical nature of the league. At some point, we need to get more guys that can cover those dudes. You know what I mean? So that's why I kind of look at Travis. I'm like, man, I understand why you want to play wide receiver. I understand why you want to play both sides of the ball to a degree. Like, I get it. You want to be like Shohei Ohtani and be like, in a couple years, be like, hey man, forget market. Like, I am my own market. Like, give me all the money. But when I look at him, I'm like, man, but at corner, I think you're just a little rarer than wide receiver. Not that it's a wrong answer necessarily. It's just a very interesting conversation that's been one of my favorite conversations that I don't think we spend enough time on. Like, I know people feel like we have, but I'm like, there's a really interesting conversation on both sides of it, to like why he should play wide receiver, to why he should play corner. And I just love those types of conversations this time of year.
Sam, do you have an opinion on that? On Travis Hunter?
No, I think that's a great point. I think he can be a really good receiver. He's obviously incredibly talented, and he's such a smart, intelligent, high football IQ player. You just don't see many guys like that at any position. And I agree that having that all-around ability, the mental, the physical, the ball skills, the anticipation, the understanding of routes, where the ball is going to be, how to maneuver your body into places where you are able to make a play on the football, not to mention having an athletic ability to make plays that other guys just can't. I think that's special at corner. And I think his ceiling at corner and his value at corner exceeds what he could be at receiver, even if that is also borderline elite.
If that's also really freaking good.
Exactly. There's no wrong answer. It's just interesting both sides, you know? Like, and by the way, I'm looking in the chat. Someone's making fun of my facial hair. Guys, look, I was not given. I have some good qualities in this world, but one quality that I was not given is good facial hair opportunities. Like, I can't grow in a face. I can't pull off Sam, right? I can't pull off Jacob. I can't do those types of things. So that's why every 4 days I clean shave and I keep it moving, because else people are going to call me patchy and stuff. And I don't really appreciate it. World's fastest fat man. Don't really appreciate it. Not say in jest.
He is always trying to stir it up. That's my boy Dan. Dan's always stirring it up. He's always in there giving a little stir, making sure what's going on. I wanted to pull this up right here. Fumble mentioning our great sponsor, Core Home Fitness. You're right. I don't go to the gym because Core Home Fitness comes to me. That is
What's a gym?
What is a gym? I don't even know.
That's outdated.
Curls and watching tape. That's just all I do. Just curls and tape. And that explains so much. he said, stir the pot, baby.
He knows his role.
Yeah.
Unlike Travis Hunter, he knows his role.
All right. We're back on this very valuable pick 33. I'm very excited to have this pick 33 because of all the conversations you get to have from like midnight on Thursday into Friday morning as the first round ends, and then it starts at like 7 or whatever is when the draft starts on Friday, and there's just all this conversations and the moving and the thoughts and what could you do with 33. I think it's a very good fun pick. So I want to go through here at some of what PFF has as their higher rated prospects still on the board, and then Ryan, if you want any positions just for me to click on, just holler at me so I can bring him up. So Derek Harmon's still on the board. That's a fun idea with Abdul Carter. Nick Scorton would be fun if we didn't take Abdul Carter. I love this. Nick Scorton keeps falling to 33. So if they like take a quarterback at 2 and then they're at 33 and Nick Scorton's there, I'm just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Like if you want to do that, that's fun. My guy's Josh Connerly. Everybody on this show knows my guy's Josh Connerly. They're at 34. Elick Iromanor, some more Jack Bash, Xavier Watts. Is there any position you want to check out?
So it would be offensive tackle without a question for me.
Okay.
But it's to our initial conversation over like, is Tevin Jenkins playing left tackle for this team? I'm like very confused with just like what the perspective of this team is overall, right? Like I'm very confused, but I mean, on paper, it's like, who's playing left tackle in 2025 for the Cleveland Browns? Like that is a great conversation. I'm looking at our lads, and they project DeJuan Jones to play left tackle, and let's not wish that upon anybody. Like let's please not do that.
I think it's got to be Lucas to start the year at least because we don't know when.
Cornelius Lucas, yeah, that's what I would.
He's still kicking around, huh? Cornelius Lucas is still kicking around.
Honestly enough, I went and watched some of his tape and looked at some of the data for him with where was he? Washington last year, and he was significantly, and I don't say this lightly, significantly better than anyone who took snaps at left tackle for the Cleveland Browns in 2020.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Hilarious.
Not even close.
Man, what happened to Jedrick Wills? That is a question for the tale of time. Yeah.
I'm still convinced if he just gave a shit that he could be a top 10 tackle. He's got top 10 tackle talent.
And not to go off the rails, but we were literally having a conversation about this, me and a couple friends, including someone who is a scout in the business. And he was telling me that, and I don't know if I would say this 100%. I don't know if I would say that this is definitely Jedrick Wills' problem, like, whatever, but it might be. But someone had said that the greatest part about NIL in today's college game is that scouts get an early understanding of how dudes handle money now, right? And like where the work ethic is early on in the process before they even get there. And I'm like, that's fascinating, right? Like when we really think about it, it's almost like, you get a very early taste, and then you talk to the people in the building and you find out, like, did they stop working hard? Did they take things for granted? Did they cut corners? Like all that type of stuff. And I'm curious if Jedrick Wills is one of those guys, and we don't have to have this conversation now, but like, I'm curious if he's one of those guys that as soon as he got money, just got complacent. Like he didn't care anymore. He didn't work hard anymore. Just fascinating.
Just totally different player from college to the NFL. Like
his rookie year was awesome.
Oh, he was good as a rookie. And there's a snap. He was my OT too behind Andrew Thomas that year in a great tackle class. There's a snap at Alabama. He drives the guy into the turf and then sits on him.
Yeah.
Like his motor was excellent in college, and then it completely disappeared in the NFL, and we don't know what happened. Just incredibly disappointing. fantastically talented player, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a bummer.
It is. So I'm gonna make my pick in a second. Last note that I have, just looking at this roster, Lorenzo Thompson is a Rhode Island guy. Apparently, is on the roster, an offensive tackle. My co-host Joe DeLeon actually played with Lorenzo Thompson in college, which is kind of hilarious. I just saw his name, wanted to mention that real quick. I will go Josh Connerly because I think that he is one of the few guys in this class that are for sure sticking at offensive tackle. Like, there's not a huge debate over that. He's got size, he's got length, he's got athleticism. And right now, you just don't have a blindside protector, so that'll be my selection there.
Before we move on, what do you think of Donovan Jackson?
He's so weird, man. Like everything about his game says guard. I know he has got decently long arms, so like whatever. But like his body type's a guard. He started the 98, not 98%, but like probably over 90% of his career at guard, right? Until he had to play tackle down the stretch when Josh Simmons got hurt. Everything about him says guard, but his tackle tape was better than his guard tape. It's so perplexing to me. But like, am I drafting him to play tackle? Am I drafting him to play guard? I still think he's a guard, but like, it is kind of really strange to me that he was so much more comfortable, I thought, after the Penn State game at playing tackle than he was at guard consistently. So he's on my list, and this list is usually very negative, but like every year I have a list of guys I would let other people draft, right? And it's usually very negative. Like, I have a couple guys this year where it's like Walter Nolan is one where it's just like, I don't hate Walter Nolan, but like someone else can draft him and figure that out. And I don't want to take that plunge. I think Donovan Jackson's on that list for me. Again, not for anything negative, not for off the field stuff. It's just like, he's such a perplexing player to me that I would rather just someone else draft him and figure out what exactly he is without me doing that work, if that makes sense. So
it's like you over there, you figure it out.
Yes, exactly. But he's a good player. I mean, like, there's no doubt. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know 100% what to do with him, man. He's kind of strange. He's a strange player to me.
I like keep sticking to my guns. I'm like, he's a guard, and then like a couple and then I'll see someone really smart and really in tune to the draft, be like, well, and then I'm like, shit. You might be.
I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that.
Yeah, exactly. Then you get mad at yourself. You're like, because I'm an Ohio State guy, right? Like I bleed scarlet and gray, you know. But then I'm like, but what if he was the left tackle of the Browns for the next 10 years? And then it's just like every teenager's fantasy. I don't know. Well, that's not what you fantasize as a teenager. Okay, all right.
I mean, honestly, I did. That's kind of why I'm weird and on this podcast right now. So I did fantasize about those things.
It's okay. We're at 67.
We all played Madden and drafted the players from our favorite college to our favorite pro team. That's what we did.
Absolutely.
When they first made it to where you could play the college football game and then transfer that roster into the rookie class of Madden, those were the greatest years of my life.
I think I got to experience that like one time. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, it wasn't that
I missed
great.
out.
It didn't do a very good job. It didn't do a very good job. Okay, so Dylan Sampson on the board, Kyle Kennard, CJ West, a lot of defensive tackles here on the board.
Yeah. When's it? So the Browns' next pick after is 94 and then 104. Okay, just making sure I'm on the save.
And then we got a big gap because we traded for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. Nice. Super Bowl winning quarterback, Kenny Pickett. So
yes. Yes.
Basically, Jake Delhomme. I know you guys were talking about Jake Delhomme before I got on here. So
yeah, I got in trouble the other day because I wanted to say I was only our good friend Michael Keefe here at the OBR. He was like, "What do you guys think about Kenny?" This was the day it happened, the Monday of legal tampering. He's like, "What do you guys think about Kenny Pickett?" And you're not allowed to say he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I just threw my hands up in disgust. I was just furious I didn't get to make that joke.
The way that the Browns are moving towards building the ultimate quarterback room for Brad Ward, it's just so funny to me. Like,
yeah, our colleague Brad Ward,
absolute least favorite quarterbacks, and they're just going after every single one. It's so funny.
He hates Kenny Pickett, and if there's one person he hates more than Kenny Pickett, it's Russell Wilson.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
He thinks that Russell Wilson's an enormous douchebag. I swear to God, his words.
It feels like most people believe that, to be honest.
He probably is. I know.
Yes.
He loves Carson Wentz too, so
Yeah, the court Carson Wentz.
That's hilarious.
Is there a position you would want to potentially target here?
I was looking at potentially wide receiver and running back boards. If I could look at both real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Wide receiver.
Put
I don't need to go any further.
I saw
Jalen
that.
Noel. Jalen Noel, please. Yes, I'll take that.
Yep.
That's two of my guys back to back, by the way. I'm a huge DJ Giddens guy as well from Kansas State, so that would have been in contention on that one too. But yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh man, I love. Big fan.
Do you want to do it?
Double dip.
Yeah.
Double dip on my guys. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's go DJ Giddens.
I love DJ Giddens.
Yeah.
All right, so now
man.
we're.
It was so weird too because 2023 he was pretty dang good in the passing game from a receiving perspective, and then this year he just forgot how to catch, which was kind of weird. He had like 5 drops this year. It didn't make any sense, but yeah.
we'll make him remember.
There's some. I had some frustration cutting up Luther Burden tape because there are times where Luther Burden. He makes these absurd catches. Like he the body control, the way he can contort his body midair, and like he adjusted to some really badly thrown Brady Cook passes this year, especially. And then he'll just like, it'll be a quick slant and he'll just drop it. And you're like, he hit you on the numbers there, bud. Like it was the same thing that with Giddens. Like I was just like, why are we?
Yeah.
You're not that guy. Like you're a good football player.
And literally the year before, he had like 40 receptions and he didn't have any drop issues. Like it just didn't make any sense. But yeah.
Is now time to look at quarterback because we are about to go on a 75 pick.
I would like to look at quarterback. Oh man, that board's horrible though. Is Tyler Shuck on there somewhere? And he's just a little bit down. Oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
I would actually like to do it.
He's going to break the guardrails.
I would like Tyler Shuck. I know there's well the guardrails kind of end with Cleveland around like the top 3 rounds, right? Don't we kind of ease up on those age guardrails a little bit?
This is where they start to
Well, and they say quarterback doesn't fall in the same.
Right.
Quarterback's got its own situation. But if Tyler Shuck's there at 104, especially in the position you've already put him in with Josh Connerly, Jalen Noel, and DJ Giddens, it's like hey, you're putting him in a pretty good situation. You add in Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku and 15 guards blocking for him,
and he's an early 4th round selection. So if you miss on an early 4th round quarterback, everyone's going to forget in 2 years. You know what I mean? Like no one cares. That's
about when he'll retire.
Well, he'll only be 28, man. Come on. Quarterbacks play forever. Come on.
Hey,
I do like him though. I do like him.
We have drafted a guy older than he is. Okay,
in the first round. Done it. So yeah.
At 22. Was he 22? Was he picked at 22? I know he was 28. So the Browns can't pick a quarterback at 22.
No, so, that's against the law. That's against
It was
what's Brady Quinn
implodes.
Yep.
You can't do
Brady
that.
Quinn, Johnny Manziel, and Brandon Whedon were all 22, I think.
Yes.
I know they were definitely in the 20s. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Poor Brady Quinn. I love Brady Quinn though. Browns can't afford to take another QB over. Hey, I was just at the high school that Brady Quinn went to, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
he's an Ohio kid, right? I forgot he was an Ohio kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he there's all kinds of stuff about him in that high school because I changing jobs actually, and I'm in the mid. That's why I'm off this week. I'm changing jobs, but I had been working on like indoor bleachers and backstops and outdoor bleachers and stuff. And so I was working on bleachers, and I walk into this high school not even putting 2 and 2 together, and then there's just a bunch of Brady Quinn stuff up on the wall. And I'm like, oh, that's where I'm at right now. So yeah, it's somewhere.
I'm scared.
It's tripping. Notre Dame fans are tripping right now because there's a 2028 quarterback, so a high school freshman about to be a sophomore named Brady Quinn as well that is literally visiting Notre Dame here in like a couple weeks or something like that. But no relation. They're not related, which is hilarious. But yeah.
Sweet.
Apparently, he's pretty good though. He's only a freshman. He's got like 10 plus offers already, like legit.
I was gonna say if he's at
P5 interest.
Yeah, if he's a freshman visiting Notre Dame, that tells you that tells you something.
Dude, his swing's
So that
crazy.
means-
He's doing like the spring swing of all the teams. So he's like visiting Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, but then he's coming up from like the southeast. So he's visiting like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama, Georgia. Like he's visiting everyone in like a 2-week span or something like that. It's wild.
So if Tyler Shuck is 26 now, that he should take him up all the way through to when they're in a position to take Brady Quinn 22nd overall.
Brady Quinn again. I can take him again. Oh, we're off the rails. All right.
The Tyler Shuck arc's so
Oh,
funny though,
shucks.
man. It really is. Because I remember when he was at Oregon and I didn't think he was very good. And then he was at Texas Tech and I also didn't think he was very good. And then like he was good this year, man. Like he was. He
Yeah,
had
he
a
was.
good year at Louisville. And it's so weird though, because our perception of like age and all that type of stuff, and it's valid, right? Like it's valid. Like
Right.
obviously you'd rather invest in younger players comparative to 26-year-olds, for obvious reasons, but it's just in a vacuum. If I just isolated everything he brings to the table, right? I'm like, hey, 6'5", 220 plus pounds. He's a good athlete. Ran 4.64 at the combine. He's got a strong arm. He just had a really good year of film. And the interesting part about him is he was injured so much in his college career that he didn't actually play that much. Like despite him being old and decrepit and whatever the word you want to use, right? It's like he's still relatively inexperienced compared to a lot of quarterbacks in this class, which is like super interesting from a developmental arc perspective. So it is a very strange mesh. But like I feel like if everyone just like, let's just talk about the positives of him, you could really talk yourself into Tyler Shuck. But the reason that he's a guy that I just still think is going to be like a 3rd to 4th round pick is because he has a durability concerns, he has an injury history, and he's 26-year-old rookie. So all those things kind of hurt him a little bit, knocked him down the peg a few times.
He only played in every season other than this year. He played in 7 games or less, and he's only been in like 42 games. So like to play to what you were saying, like he's only like, I don't know if it's 42 starts, but I think it's like 42 games he's appeared in, and which is just, yeah. I mean, we talk about it with running backs, even like, especially with running backs, you talk about the tread on the tires, how many carries, how many things like that. And you're like, yeah, for a 26-year-old, like, I mean, and they were all broken bones. 2 broken clavicles and a broken tibia. Like he didn't blow out the same knee. Like all right. We're back here for our first of we only have 4 6th round picks now. We were supposed to have 5, but we only have 4. So now we're on our first of our first 6th round pick. Is there a position that might entice you here?
I would like to look at linebacker for a split second because I don't really love, like, I don't know. We'll see what the board looks like actually, but
It's not great.
No. Can we go interior defensive line then? Can we go interior defensive line?
Do you know how to pronounce a Buchanan's first name?
Isn't it just Teddy? Is it not Teddy? Am I wrong there?
Because Jacob told me last week that it was a soft E.
That's what it said. I googled it and it said it's like saying
That
Teddy
does not
and a
exist.
soft E.
Oh, that's weird.
There's no
That's
such
insane.
thing.
I know he's got a cool backstory. He was a UC Davis guy, transferred to Cal this year. Like I know his background's pretty interesting, but now I guess I don't really know enough there. Don't really know enough there. So, all right. So I'm looking at Malik Collins on the roster, right? I'm looking at Shelby Harris. I'm just trying to figure out a guy that would fit best. Michael Hall Jr. is on the roster, who I liked a good bit, as long as he's keeping his nose out of things that shouldn't be in.
I would say if you're looking for one, they don't have a ton of guys that can stop the run.
They need a 2-gapper. It's pretty much Jawan Briggs right now, and that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would like to lower down that board then. Let's go with what spot are we at right now? We're at 179. That's a fine spot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go Cameron Jackson, the defensive tackle from Florida.
Okay.
He's 6'6", like almost 340. He trimmed down to like 330 something. He was originally at Memphis and he was like 370 pounds, and Florida just kind of
They had a
like
beefy defensive tackle room, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's massive. Absolutely massive. Oh, well, yeah. When we talk about What was that? What was the other kid from Florida's name? 21, Desmond
Desmond
something.
Watson?
Desmond Watson. Yep, Desmond Watson, who's like up to like 450 now, I think, or something like that.
It moves better than me. Like the dude just
Yeah.
runs around and you're just like, what? How?
I know, and then you kind of imagine him. You're like, man, imagine him at like 350. He probably
Yeah.
would move incredibly well, but unfortunately, just isn't what he weighs. But Cam Jackson, I think at that spot, it's like number 179 for a kid that is that massive and really good against the run. Is he going to give you anything against the pass? Probably not. But like at that point, beggars can't be choosers of finding just a guy that can impact run downs potentially.
There's like 3 guys on here that are my guys, and I'm just curious to see if you end up even considering one.
Is Emory Jones still on the board?
Yes, somehow.
That's interesting.
They've got him really low.
Yeah, I'm not a big Emory Jones fan, but like 6th round is kind of outrageous. Like that's kind of
we're at 192.
And I don't even want to make that pick because like I kind of get upset sometimes where I'm like these mock drafts show these guys where I'm just like he's not going to be in that range, and that kind of pisses me off a little bit. So I don't like that at all. Yeah. Can I see that linebacker board one more time? I feel like I'm looking at. I know Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah's injury is like super like up in the air right now as far as like what the long term is. Like I would like to get something, even though I was told that Mohamed Diabate actually played pretty well last year in like some snaps down the stretch, which is interesting.
They did sign Jerome Baker.
Line as a bat. Yes, that should not stop you from getting quality linebacker depth, though. Jerome Baker's not very good. Dude, I don't like that board, though. I mean, Buchanan's all right, though. Buchanan's all right. Jalen Walker's actually interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen Jalen Walker from Indiana. He's very...
Whoa, Jalen Walker's still on the board?
No, different Jalen Walker. Different Jalen Walker. This is a double A-L-I-N
It's the
Walker.
Cameron Jordan situation again.
Yes.
They're going to do it again.
Oh,
Jalen Walker
still on the board? Why is Smile Munden still on the board? What is happening in this mock? I don't even understand. Okay. All right, sure. I'm gonna go Jamon Dumas Johnson. Let's go with it. Former Georgia Bulldog, now Kentucky Wildcat. Physical run defender, early downs. Isn't gonna give you anything on passing downs, but again, we're at pick 190, whatever. It's just is what it is at that point.
All right, we got 2 more 6th rounders and then a 7th rounder.
Okay. Can I look at wide receiver? What's left of the wide receiver room? Potentially double dip there. Oh, why is Caden Prather still there? I mean, I'm gonna get pissed off because he's not gonna be there in reality. Jameer Dykes fast. I could add a little juice. Sammy Brown actually could be there. That's not an unrealistic expectation there.
All of the Colorado guys.
All of them, yeah, back to back to back. We're not touching Kyron Lacey for obvious reasons. Not doing that. All right, let's go. Let's go Samuel Brown from Miami. There, the wide receiver. Funny enough,
pretty good first name.
Yeah, very good first name. Yeah, but he goes by Samuel, not Sam. So I don't know if that changes your opinion of him or not. But yeah, he's interesting though. He was at Houston in 2023 with Matthew Golden. They were both on the same team, and Sam Brown was just better than Matthew Golden in Houston. Like he just was. He was the better wide receiver. And I remember one went to Miami, obviously Samuel Brown, and then Matthew Golden obviously went to Texas. And I was like under the opinion, I'm like, wow, Miami got the better Houston receiver. And I was very wrong about that because one guy developed into a top 50 pick and the other one is here in the 6th round for an obvious reason. But we'll, still developmental upside though. He's springy as heck. Just he has no play strength. So hopefully you guys have a good strength and conditioning department with the Cleveland Browns that can develop some play strength. I don't know.
David Njoku.
Yeah. David Njoku's there. Yeah. We should just put him in charge. I don't know.
Mike Hall too, I guess, right? I mean, he ended up actually being a pretty darn good run defender.
Yeah, he defended the run better this year. That's what I was going to say. He defended the run better this year for the Browns than he did for Ohio State at any point. I don't know.
All right.
Here we go.
Man, there's I feel like I hit most of the major needs, right? For the most part.
We could probably use a tight end.
All right, let's look at the tight ends board. Why not? Let's go tight ends. Luke Lachey, Rondé Gadsden's a nice athletic guy, but isn't going to play in line very much.
That's it.
Yeah, I'll go Rondé Gadsden. He's not going to help you in line at all, but if we're going to run some 12 and he's kind of your H or a guy that can play outside a little bit as a big slot, like at that point in the draft, who really cares that much?
You got David Njoku. Like, they've got the inline guy there. Like, they'll be all right.
Yeah.
What's the running back board look like? I want to see if there's anyone that Ryan likes. If they run a double dip.
I like Raheem
That's it.
Sanders a good bit.
That is literally it.
That's all? Just 3?
Just
I
3.
do like Raheem Sanders. I mean, if you want a power guy to go wrong with DJ Giddens a little bit, we could do that. Why not? Let's hit it.
I like it. We've done a lot of double dipping at the running back situation just because
you guys have a lot of selections too, so like you might have to double dip somewhere at some point, you know.
So here's the thing, though. This is the bullshit of it. So for the longest time, they were projected to have 12. So like I have written a mock draft every Monday since the day after week 17. And so I'm writing all these mock drafts with 12 dudes in it, right? Like, and I'm just like, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, we're just going to take 1 pick away and then we're going to trade 1 for Kenny Pickett and go down to 10. And I'm like, couldn't have done this 2 months ago?
Like, what are the? Do we mean nothing to you?
Yeah. All of my work. Just pissed all over.
Yes. What do you mean?
That's hilarious.
They did not like these picks here.
They never like anything down. Like I literally did one the other day on a different podcast where we like split. We did like back and forth on mock draft, and like all of mine were like C- or like Fs. Like it was so disheartening. I'm like, okay, I don't care, guys. You just had Smile Money available in like the 7th round, so I don't want to hear your feedback here. Okay.
So someone commented on my mock draft this morning. And I appreciated it because he wasn't mean about it. He just told me what he thought. And his comment was, nothing personal, bro, but I would fall into a deep depression if this happened.
Nothing personal.
Nothing personal at the beginning. Yeah, nothing personal, but you suck. Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh my God. Well, that was awesome. Ryan, we really, really appreciate your time, man. Real quick before we let you go, before we sign off, just let everybody know where they can catch all your stuff.
Yeah. If you're listening to obviously live on YouTube at Rise and Draft, which is on the screen. If you want to go follow on Twitter or X, however you call it these days, I still refer to it as Twitter because I just don't want to call it X. It's just not my thing. Rise and Draft. We also A to Z Sports. If you guys want to go over there, they've been doing NFL coverage for like since 2016, I think, but college football and NFL draft has really kind of started to find its traction along the sites. College football, especially, there was a big expansion this past offseason. There will be even more of an expansion this offseason. So A to Z Sports, NFL draft coverage. I'll have a 3-round mock on Thursday if people are into that type of thing as well. And then published a quarterback big board the other day. I'm going to start doing my position rankings more and more as we kind of get closer and closer to April. So A to Z Sports at Rise and Draft on Twitter. And thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Tomorrow is Tuesday. That is OBR Weekly. Is that right? It's OBR Weekly.
I believe so.
Is OBR Weekly? No, it's not. It's the React.
No. Okay. Well,
I don't know. We're bad. Barry, don't fire us. We love you guys so much. We'll talk to you guys again next week.
Tune in.
Yeah. Just tune in.
It'll be better than this, for sure.
We'll see you guys next week. As always, guys, go Browns.